What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 15 cash game review. In this video, I'll be going over the lineup that I ended up with for DraftKings on the main slate. It was unfortunately another disappointing week on DraftKings. The lineup that I ran put up 146.02 points, only enough to win 27.5 of the head-to-heads that I played, 0 out of 12 double-ups. And in terms of double ups, the cash line was about 157 to 159 and just about every single one. So I was about 11, 12, 13 points short in every double up. And with this week, ownership was extremely condensed in cash games at quarterback, at tight end especially, and at running back as well. So it didn't matter if you had two guys that were maybe projected similarly or had very good reasons to play them before the games. Highly comparable. Ian Thomas and Tyler Higbee stand out to me. 80% of the field played one of these two guys. And if you played Ian Thomas, it was a good play. There was no reason to think it was a bad play, but you got 4.3 points. And if you played Higbee, you got 26.1. So, that right there is the entire difference, especially considering chances are, you were sharing quite a few plays with the rest of your competition because, ownership was so consolidated in cash games this week. So I'll get right into the lineup that I ran and where I think I went wrong this week and where I think that it was okay to make some of the plays I made. So, the vast majority of people played one of two quarterbacks in cash. They either played Kyler Murray, who was 33.2% owned in the massive single entry double up, or they did what I did and they played Deshaun Watson, who was 29.5% owned in the same contest. And I never really considered Kyler. Now I get it, you got a discount. He was 5,600 against Cleveland. But he came into the game with three straight games, albeit against tough opponents, but still three straight games with under 200 passing yards. And since his hamstring scare a couple weeks back, it seemed like his rushing floor had been greatly reduced. Now, against Cleveland, he found that rushing, production once again, 8 for 56 on the ground. And in the end, Watson did outscore Murray. I think that was, a pretty easy outcome to predict. But he only outscored him by 1.56 points, and he cost 1,200 more. So, obviously, in terms of output, Murray's, value and his point per dollar, what he allowed you to get to, was more valuable despite underscoring Watson because it was so close. And, for me, Watson was the clear play. The game environment, highest total on the week, him and Tannehill going back and forth. Will Fuller was back. All of that. And DeAndre Hopkins, to me, who I also played, was a monster play. I just wanted to get that stack in there in cash. And stacking is obviously not, necessary for cash games, but I think it does give you a thinner range of outcomes. You're either going to smash if that stack goes off or you're going to be in trouble if it doesn't, and it didn't for me this week. Despite both of them having pretty decent games, it's not like either of them really busted, but it just wasn't enough. And for Watson, it was a floor game. First time, I'm sorry, not first time, but in his last 10 games, he only put up under 19 points twice, and yesterday was one of those examples. So the only play that I really considered over Watson was Tannehill, who, had the best score of the group, just over 25 points. And, if there was a decent discount, I think I definitely would have gone Tannehill because I did think they were close. But, for only 300 more, I just thought that the floor ceiling difference between the two was significantly in favor of Watson. As good as Tannehill's been playing, as efficient as he's been, just give me Deshaun Watson in that spot. And like I said, I don't mind taking on the risk of that consolidated range of outcomes by stacking. I think that it increases your upside as well as your downside, but, I'm always about that upside. Always, always. So, I rolled Watson. It's unfortunate that he had a floor game in this spot. Maybe it was chasing the results of last week when, I didn't play Watson and he smashed, but I don't think so. I think that, all signs led to Watson being a great play, and it just, it didn't work out. And you didn't really lose or win the week on quarterback this week. Either way. At running back, we really find the crux of where I went wrong and where, a lot of people probably went right. Because, look, there were 5 popular plays this week at running back, and I think all of them had merit. Two of them had the best games of their season up to this point. So we have, I'll go in terms of ownership in the $25 massive single entry double up. Chris Carson, 65.5%. Saquon Barkley, 38.5%. Patrick Laird, 33.9%. Todd Gurley and Christian McCaffrey, both 28.7%. And that just goes to show you that, a vast majority of players in cash games and in these double ups had probably a combination of 3 of these 5 guys. And, I thought that they were pretty obvious. I think that it shows how sharp the DFS community is, that they weren't just loading up, on like Derrick Henry maybe or Leonard Fournette. And they were playing these solid plays. It was a good process, I think, to lead to these 5 guys. And, they were all chalky. And I think it comes down to, did you play Barkley? Or did you play Laird? I played Laird, and I failed miserably. Laird fell below 50% of snaps for the first time, in this role that he's had. 12 for 46 on the ground, caught 2 of his 5 targets. And, despite his touch total being pretty similar to what it's been, 7.4 points is definitely in the range of outcomes for a player like that. Saquon Barkley. He was the only one of these guys that I didn't consider really cash viable. I get the matchup, but it's the same thing that we talked about with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, who was a great play against the 49ers, shouldn't really have been, impacted by the matchup. Saquon Barkley, I don't think was a great play at 7,700. And just because it was in a good matchup, I'm not going to jam him in there. Chris Carson was in a great matchup, and I think he was a better play on the surface. You can say what you want about his rushing equity, but without Rashad Penny there, he's game script independent, and he's on a team that is devoted to running the ball, and he was in an equally good matchup, if not a better matchup against the Panthers. Both of them, Barkley and Carson, had their best games of the season. Carson, 29.7 points, Barkley, 33.3. So, it's tough. Barkley's failed in good matchups before, and I'm not going to just jam him in there, just because. Chris Carson, seemed like a monster play. He was a priority play, but again, he was higher owned than all these guys, 65.5%. Everybody was on this play. So you didn't really get any leverage from Carson doing well. You did get leverage from these other guys, especially if, considering a third of the field played Patrick Laird, like me. And, why this really, sticks in my craw, if you will, is because I was, far and away not on Patrick Laird compared to these other guys. I was trying to find a way to jam in CMC. And maybe I was stubborn. I didn't want to come off Watson as at quarterback, and I didn't want to come off of Godwin at wide receiver. In favor of CMC. Godwin and Barkley were the same price, and I talked about this in my cash pool video. I talked about it on the podcast as well. Chris Godwin 7.7 versus Saquon Barkley. Give me Godwin with no Evans in this matchup in this spot against the Lions. I would have played forward wide receivers and put Godwin in the flex before I played Saquon Barkley for the same exact price. Was that a lapse in process? Maybe. This is the only time all year that I've played 2 extremely high-priced wide receivers in the same lineup in cash games. And, I lost. But I don't think that it was a bad process. I think both Hopkins and Godwin especially, were just elite plays this week. And I don't feel bad about fading Saquon, especially when you consider that this was his best output all season and Godwin got hurt. That was like a major question for me is, did I want to play Barkley or did I want to play Godwin? And I feel fine that I stuck with Godwin. I don't feel bad that he got injured midway through the third quarter and Saquon Barkley has his best game all season. So, call me a fish, call me what you want, but, I feel fine with that decision. Todd Gurley only touched the ball 14 times, totaled 38 yards, and luck boxed into the end zone twice, finished with 20.8 points. But look, it's not like the process was off. They said that they were going to commit to him in the run. We bought into that. He was underpriced for that role. And he had 100% of the carries and 100% of the running back targets. Just didn't amount to much because the Rams drew dead in this game. So, you hate to see it. Obviously, CMC, what is there to say? This dude, just never stops balling. Had 27 total touches, caught 8 of his 10 targets, 175 total yards, and missed both bonuses, but was extremely close to both. 87 on the ground and 88 through the air. Just a few more plays. And that 37.5 points were well into the 40s at that point. We're pushing 50. So yeah, I played Carson, played Gurley, and played Laird. Shouldn't have played Laird. You hate to see it. You really do. But yeah. Looking at wide receiver, like I said, played 2 high-priced guys at wide receiver. Jammed in Hopkins, jammed in Godwin. Without Evans, I considered Chris Godwin one of the easiest locks to 3x his salary that we've seen all year. And, he was well on his way to doing so. Finished with 5 for 121, only 20.1 points. And, he went down with an ugly injury in the third quarter. I think it's probably the last time that we see him this season. And on top of that, right in that same game, we got Brashad Perryman running, hotter than the freaking sun itself. Managed 3 touchdowns on 5 receptions. 3 touchdowns on 5 receptions. Brashad Perryman at 4,500 on DraftKings. What are we doing? Brashad? I mean, meanwhile, I'm over here jamming Godwin in at 7.7K. Crazy. And, I can't even really complain about how hot Perryman ran when I rostered Chris Conley, right? Who catches touchdowns on 50% of his receptions. 4 for 49 at 2, 3.6K. Amazing play. 20.9 points. Same thing Hopkins did at 8K. You're getting this value at 3.6. Monster play. And early in the game, Keelan Cole catches a deep bomb. Chris Conley's drawing dead for the most part, the entire first half. And, you're thinking, man, what have I done? But, Conley, projected, I think, to have the highest floor ceiling. Maybe not floor, maybe Westbrook, but with the 1K discount to Conley and the ceiling I think you got out of him, I was all over Conley, and he definitely ran hot, same as Perryman. He ran insanely hot to get touchdowns at that rate. You can never project that, you can't expect that, but he got there. And I briefly mentioned Hopkins. In retrospect, maybe Hopkins was thin for cash. It's not like he's Michael Thomas, getting 11, 12 targets. It was his third game with only 8 targets in his last 4. 3 out of the last 4 he has under 10 targets, and I'm jamming him in at 8K in cash. Maybe I should have gotten off of him. Like I said, it's not necessary to stack in cash. I was never going to fade Godwin, but maybe I could have, gone up from Hopkins to McCaffrey and down, I don't know, down from Gurley, not really down from Watson. See, that's the problem that I had all week, is like I didn't want to get off Watson. I would have had to play, Kyler and Bengals D to get up to, CMC from Hopkins. I didn't feel good about that. I never felt good about that. I just figured, I'll play Patrick Laird. He should, get me 15 or so points, and then hopefully Hopkins and Nook can, get this one home for me. It didn't happen. But, not like last week where the process really, tore me up inside. I see the merit of, why I did this. I felt good about this going into the game. Last week, going into these games, I just felt, god awful. Had no idea what I was doing, and I was just like, all right, let it roll. This week, thought it through, made a decision that I thought made sense, and it didn't work. But, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that kind of loss. I'm not okay with, feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. This week, that was not the case. At tight end, 80% of the field played one of 2 guys, Ian Thomas or Tyler Higbee. I'm surprised that Higbee drew significantly more cash game ownership, than Thomas, 48.7% to Thomas's 31.8. It's pretty significant for these 2 guys, especially considering that Higbee was, 800 more. And I thought that you really couldn't project much of a usage difference. Granted, Higbee was on a fire roll, but even so, I mean, I don't know. I didn't expect that. But, look, Ian Thomas, unlike Patrick Laird, his box score, deficiency wasn't a reflection of diminished usage. Not at all. He still played over 95% of snaps. He was still out wide or in the slot for 40 snaps, ran out, routes on 39 out of 46 dropbacks. He just simply didn't get the targets. Higbee, on the other hand, he has his third straight 100-yard game. And on that, I mean, why was Gerald ever playing ahead of this guy? This guy's a certified baller. He's giving this Rams offense something they did not have, in the past. But, I mean, 14 targets, 12 for 111. This guy's had over 20 DK points 3 straight weeks, 100-yard bonus every single time. Only 1 touchdown, and he's just balling out. I mean, he was clearly underpriced. It was only ever going to be Higbee or Thomas for cash. I made the wrong choice. And like I said, you make the wrong choice at running back, you play Laird over any of the other guys, you lose the week. That's what I did. You play Thomas over Higbee when we're talking about 80% of the field and a difference of over 20 points between the two, you're going to lose the week. It's really tough. In a sport like NFL where, the prices can be really condensed and the range of outcomes are so vast. And that's what makes NFL such a difficult cash game sport compared to things like, NBA and some of the others. But, it's tough at defense. A lot of people played the Lions. They were like 30% owned. They got 3 points. I had the Redskins at 3 points. Nothing really to say there. I like the Redskins. I just thought that they had been getting a ton of pressure lately. I thought that the Eagles' offense was broken and, super talent poor. Redskins came into the game with like 17 sacks, I think it was, in their last 3 games. And, Carson Wentz has not been playing well as of late. So, I totally thought it was likely that they fell on their face. Eagles really almost lost that game if not for that, Greg Ward touchdown in the final minutes. The score looks a little bit better because the Eagles got a defensive touchdown on the last play of the game. But, still, I don't feel bad about that, defense. It's just what fit in the lineup. Actually left 200 on the board with this lineup. I didn't care to go up to the Giants or, I don't know, and anything else. But yeah, that's really all I've got for this week. Sorry about the somber tone. It was just a disappointing week because I felt so good about it going into it. Thought I was really going to bounce back this week. And it didn't happen. But, that is part of the grind. I am truly excited to be getting on to next week where we've got an awesome Saturday slate. I'll be doing individual content for that. Maybe put that out on maybe Wednesday or Thursday and maybe do the full video a day or two later, but I am definitely excited to be, talking about this 3-game slate on Saturday. There's some awesome games right off the bat early in the morning, Houston and Tampa Bay. That's going to be an awesome game. And all 3 games I think are pretty interesting. So that's going to be a great slate. It's like the Thanksgiving slate, but, just better games. So, that's exciting. And then obviously a full slate on Sunday. So, keep posted. Follow me on Twitter. I'll be doing individual, content for each slate this week. And thank you for watching. I'll definitely have some more energy throughout the week. It was just a, disappointing week, but we bounced back and that's all part of it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next week.